Hey y'all, welcome back to Eden's Vine. It's a beautiful morning out here, and we're just wrapping up some of our drip irrigation today. It's all dripping out to the vines, and they look nice and happy. As I was talking about, we got this nice little strip underneath here, and it's going all the way down. So the vine's roots, let me bring you over here and maybe I can show you a little bit better. See right in here, we got a full strip of water, moist soil, and it goes all the way down the row. And that's what we're looking for. We don't want any patchy spots. Like kind of right here, we've got a patchy spot, but it's by a post, so I'm not too worried about it. But the rest of the row is just nice and wet and moist for the vines. And then what I'm going to do is we'll turn this off and we'll let it go for a week or two before we even think about irrigating again. Anyway, as I was saying, welcome to Eden's Vine. We got another episode this morning, and what we're going to try to do today and probably tomorrow is we're going to fix this post. It's leaning. It's broke. It broke off down here. Maybe some of you guys saw it on another post, but it's broke down there. We need to get this thing out and get another one in. The question I have right now, and the reason that we got to get this out while there's still green growth on the vines, is because I might need to get a tractor down there. And as you can see, with this thing leaning into the row, that tractor might get caught on it and then yank the thing down, and I absolutely don't want that. So we got to get this row opened up, and if you can notice over here, it's opened up more than I need. And my equipment has just enough space to get down these rows. That's how we designed it. So I can't have one leaning into the row. So the first thing we need to do is we need to set up our tractor to deal with this problem. I've got it set up for grading soil right now, so smoothing drives and smoothing soil out. And so I've got a box blade on there. I need to get that box blade off, and I need to get my backhoe on the tractor. So I'll show you how to do that with a BX23S this morning, and that may be as far as we get because I got to go get some concrete for that post. I've got the posts. Oh, let me show you those right now. They're a little heavier duty than these wooden posts. When I started out, I needed to go with the wooden posts because they were much cheaper. But here we go. We got nice big 2 7/8 galvanized Schedule 40 pipe, and that's what we're going to use for our end posts. And we're going to concrete them in. We're going to have about 3 or 4 bags of concrete down in the hole. So it's going to be anywhere from 150 to 250 pounds in each hole. Probably going to get close to the 250. I don't want to leave it too light down there. And depending on the size of the hole, I might go up to 300. But they are anchored at the other side. So, and my rows aren't like 1,000 feet long or anything crazy. They're only 100 feet. So, 250 pounds in the hole with that big heavy pipe should be fine. All right, let's get started. Okay, so let me show you guys a little trick when you're wearing gloves and you have them stored outside in your shop out here. And I'm not even that far out in the sticks, but out here in the sticks. Okay, all right, what I like to do, put these gloves down on the ground, stomp on them, especially around the fingertips. Okay, if you don't do this, you might find a little surprise up in there, and you might not be too happy with what it is. It's usually like a little jumping spider or something. They like to get up in there. Okay, and they don't like to bite, but if you stick your finger right in their face, they'll do it. All right, here we go. Let me pull this camera down for you guys. Next step is we're going to relieve the pressure in hydraulic lines. You know, I already did that, but I'm going to show you guys how to do that here in just a second. All right, so when the tractor's on, there's pressure in your hydraulic lines to run and operate the implements on the tractor, so the bucket. So what I need to do is I want to get the hydraulic pressure down before I go hook up the hydraulics to the backhoe, or I won't be able to push the pins in. Okay, I won't be able to push the connectors together. So I turn off the tractor and I'm going to relieve the pressure. Wave, say hi. Love y'all. Not yet. All right, so all I did is I used my controller here, my stick, and I just relieved all the pressure, and I want to move this all around so that I'm making sure there's not pressure caught anywhere in the lines. Okay, so now that it's off and the pressure's out, I'm gonna hop off and I'm gonna hook up my hydraulic lines back here. Okay, so let's see if I can get a good angle for you guys. They just will not push together. There's so much pressure in those lines. I don't remember the exact amount of pressure, but it's not really relevant. What's relevant is you can't get the connectors together. All right. It does become relevant when you're doing certain things, but from an engineering standpoint, it's relevant. From a practical everyday use standpoint, it's not really relevant. All right, here we go. All right, so quick connector comes off. All right, that's out. Now I want to get this hooked up. It hooks up here. Okay, so I get this off. I want to make sure, see how that gets a little gunked up? So I want to make sure that that dirt's not getting inside that line the best I can. Now, again, everyday use, the best way to do this is to thoroughly clean this, okay? But again, everyday use, and if you're taking care of your tractor, you should be all right. But again, you know, look to your manuals and see what it says to do here. This is how I do it. You know, do as I say, not as I do sometimes, right? Okay, so I got that cleaned off the best I could, and I'm okay with that. That's hooked up. You need to figure out how you want to do that for yourself, okay, and how much time you want to spend on it, and what your cost benefit analysis is. All right, here we go. Another connector. I'm not going to take the dirty glove to it. We're going to take my clean finger, and I'm going right into here. Okay. All right. Last one I got to hook up over here. I'm going to put my glove back on because these caps sometimes pop off pretty fast, and when they do, your fingers go wherever they're going to go. Okay, so I like to make sure my glove's on before I take the caps off if it's around metal. All right, so here we go. This is going on. All right, now I got all three of those together. We're ready to power up the tractor, and then we're going to hook up. We're going to put this backhoe on the tractor. Good news, guys. We had a chicken we thought was caught by a hawk or killed by a hawk or something, but she seems to be okay. She seems to be okay. And she's sitting on her, she's not too happy with us right now. She's sitting on her eggs, so we're going to leave her alone. But we're glad to see she's alive, because we found a lot of feathers that tend to indicate that they're not around anymore. So it's good to see that one still here. And we appreciate her eggs for sure. What's that? You don't see peas budding out? Let me show you, sweetie. Come on. No, it's on this bottom rack back here, so let me show you. All right, my daughter and I planted some peas in our greenhouse, and she wasn't sure where they were.
Oh!
They're germinated. See them? They're coming up. All right, so we'll get those in the ground pretty soon. Pretty cool. Who planted those, Evangeline?
Me.
Yeah, you did. Are you happy?
Yeah.
It's fun, right?
Yeah.
All right.
But
All right, let's get back to putting that backhoe on the tractor.
Guess what? I'm going to show you this.
What are you going to show them? Well, be careful. You don't even know where the camera's going. It's all over the place. Look at your camera. What are you showing?
My special.
Oh, yeah. You've got some acorns in there, right?
Right.
Very cool.
These
Tell us about them.
And this one's like a tree bush. I'm going to show you where which one can turn into.
Oh, yeah? What's it going to turn into? Oh, is that right? It's going to turn into a chest tree? Cool. All right. Well, I'm going to get back to putting the backhoe on the tractor. Okay, honey? All right. Okay, so for this, we got to be off the tractor. I just turned it on. And what we need to do is we need to get these pins on these plates. So it's got this pin has to go in here. And so I've got to raise the backhoe up using the hydraulics, and then I've got to back up the tractor. So there we go. All right, y'all. Kyle here with Eden's Vine. We're going to go check out this post and see what we got to do today. This is kind of one of those jobs I really wish I didn't have to do this time of the year. But unfortunately, it's calling, and these in posts really are due, guys. They're over 10 years old. They've lived their life. It's all I really expected to get out of them. And I got pretty much exactly what I expected to get out of them, about 10 years. So, and we're a little over that now. So it doesn't surprise me at all that they're starting to fail. And it didn't surprise me at all that I would want to come back and replace them with metal. But we're here, and I hoped and I wished and I really wanted to wait until the winter time or early spring when the grapes are dormant. But I didn't get that luxury with these two posts. These two need to get changed out today. And so that's what we're going to try to do. We're going to get new posts in the ground later on in the week. I'm going to have to come back and I'll show you guys how I tap those posts. Basically, we need to tap them so that our wires stay where they're supposed to be on that post. And so I'm going to tap them and show you guys my idea for how I'm going to get those wires from dropping down the post when I go to tighten them up. But we got to let the concrete cure for a few days before we get going on any of that. Again, a reminder, the post is right over here. This is our post here. We need to remove this. And I've been thinking on how I'm going to do that, because I've got infrastructure here. I don't want to mess with my drip line, so I might end up having to take it off down there. You guys know how those get tightened up around the barb. So what I'm likely going to do is just either cut that drip line, because I've got a little bit of play here to pull it back, and I've also got couplers, so I can come in here with a coupler if I need to. But I'm definitely going to remove this and get this off of this wire and get it out of the way. That's going to be step one. Step two, I really don't want to have to rebuild these, and these little loops that I made in the wire to go around the post should be able to drop down around that other post. Now, in order to do that, what I'm going to need to do is I'm going to need to find a spot in here that makes sense. Likely it's going to be something close in here, or I might even decide, depending on how hard these grapes are grabbing onto this wire, I might put my splice in here. But basically what I've got to do to make sure that I can pull that wire far enough to get up and over the new pipe is I'm going to have to make sure to splice this somewhere in here and insert a new wire and crimp it down and basically extend this wire. So it's basically like adding a coupler, but it's not exactly the same thing, okay? And the reason I want to do that near a post is so, as you can see, like when we get around the posts, when this canopy's full, usually, around the post there's not much foliage. There's a post there, there's metal there that can catch you, and the crimps on the edges after you crimp them can get a little sharp. So if you're looking at this is a crimp here, and it can be a little, it can be a little sharp. And then the other thing you got to worry about is right here. If that's too long, it can poke you. And so that's why I like leaving my crimps or any type of connection that I have to make in my wire near posts. Okay, so that way I'm not, in other words, I don't want to be in here harvesting fruit and and stick my hand in there and get a cut as I pull my hand out on a crimp like this. That's not what I want to do. Now again, when you're harvesting, you should be wearing gloves, you should be taking care of yourself, long sleeves to minimize that risk. It's just, you know, there's a way we should do things and a way that things often happen, and those two things aren't the same. So my recommendation, wear gloves, wear long sleeves when you're working, but also do your best to try to prevent having things like this in inappropriate locations. Now, sometimes you can't help that, but in this context, we should be able to help that. So we're going to try to help it. We're going to try to put it here, you know, or close, but I've got to make sure that I've got enough wire here to pull back on, you know. And these don't have to be super tight. As you can see, they're not super tight right now. Some give is fine, but we are going to need to get these tightened up because they're going to get real loose when I remove this post. So that's the idea. That's what we're going to try to do. This post is already broken at the bottom, so I'm either going to cut it off, and then the idea is that I'm going to swing this over that way into that other row, and I'm going to pull my tractor in here so we can get digging. Now, I'm also unsure of what I'm going to have to do with these two wires that are going down to another anchor, and then this one right here. My hope is that when I remove this, I can just kick the bottom of the post out, and that'll give me enough room to dig, and also give me room to come in here with my other post. And if I can keep this top line in alignment, and then I'm also going to have a bottom line that's running on the ground when I go to set the post, so that I can make sure that the post is relatively in the correct place. And I've got some other tools I'm going to use to make sure that the angle of the post is what I want, and to make sure that it's not listing to one side or the other. All right, so I guess I was so long-winded because I'm trying to postpone this, and it's definitely going to challenge me a little bit. So we'll see how this goes. You know, if for whatever reason I feel the need to use the full range of the English language, I apologize in advance. This one might try me just a little bit. If that is the case, I'll be sure to in the edit to delete it out, or to edit that that inappropriate language out. But I'm going to try to keep it to a minimum. I'm going to try to get to work on this, or keep it absent from my vocabulary today. But this one is not one that is one I'm looking forward to. But we're gonna have fun anyway. We get to hop on a tractor, we get to dig a hole, and we get to play with grapevine trellising. Again, though, this isn't really the time you want to have to do this. It would be much better in the winter time, when all these leaves are off and you can cut all of these canes back, and you just don't have any weight up here. Because once you move that post, all that weight, it doesn't look like much, but it is, it's going to want to droop. And when it droops, you got to worry about your trunks, especially on young vines like this. It's so close. That's one of the reasons I don't want to take this post all the way out, is I'm worried about that vine right there. I don't want to break it. Okay, this vine's doing a little bit better. I'm not too worried about that one. Once I cut that one off of the cordon wire, it'll stand up pretty well. But some of the other ones around here are younger, and I don't want their trunks to bend or break. So we're gonna do the best we can here. We got to be slow, we got to be patient. We don't want to break anything around where we're working. So it's going to take some time, but we're going to get through it. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get this concrete out to the field. We're going to hop in the truck. And one of the reasons I like having the truck out in the field with me is if for whatever reason I get going on something and I get too hot, I can go ahead and, you know, I can go ahead and just hop in the truck for a minute and cool off for a second, instead of having to try to run back into the house, or you know, if my boots are muddy or something, I don't really want to have to do that. You know, if I'm covered in dirt, I don't really want to have to do that. I don't really want to walk around the shop. I'd rather just, I know it sounds a little ridiculous, but if you're covered in dirt and mud, why would you want to hop in your car seat? Well, because I kind of keep it all isolated to right here rather than like dragging everything through a shop or dragging everything through the house. So so we're pulling through this gate. I do have a box out there that I'm going to watch out for. Got a little shovel I need to make sure I pick up. Right. Guess I should have mounted that a little bit better, but here we go. All right. Okay, so I'm just going to put the truck over here in the shade. These plum trees are going to give it pretty good shade. So I'm just going to come on over here. I'm going to get a little closer to that other plum tree. Alright, and then when I need it, I'm going to pull up and I'm going to get that that tractor over here and use the loader to move that concrete. I'm going to mix the concrete in that loader, but I got to dig the hole before I move the concrete any further. We like to leave our tools out in the field. Not like that, but we do like to leave them out here, like an end post that's sitting around, you know, like a bamboo, or not an end post, a bamboo post, so we can train up our vines or our plants. We like to leave stuff sitting around so that it's ready to use. So a little sacrificial there on that, but we like to leave it in places where, you know, it's already ready to go rather than having to go back and forth. So we'll take a cheap shovel and stuff like that and just leave them out in the field. Rakes, hoes, we do that too. All right, next thing, we're gonna go ahead and go get that tractor and some tools. We're gonna load up the bucket with some tools that we need. Like we're gonna need some wire cutters. We're gonna need our crimpers potentially, although we're likely not gonna be doing that today. I'm gonna need the tensioner in case I can loosen up those wires some. And then I've got some measuring tools in the truck that I'm going to use. But anyway, the main thing is getting to that hole. All right, I'm going to go get these tools loaded up. I'll meet you back out in the field. we're gonna leave the tractor right here for now, and I'm gonna go see what it's gonna take to get that post out. I might end up getting a T-post and some baling wire and drive the T-post and then strap that post to the baling wire to try to keep everything up. I'll show you how I'm gonna do that in just a second. The other thing I might end up doing is I might end up going and getting that little silky to cut through that post. Okay, T-post driver, baling wire, T-post, all ready to go when I break this guy off. I'm just gonna try to move it and break it off of there. But first, we wanna get this irrigation line off, and I wanna get those zip ties off. So that's what we're doing right now. And I do like throwing that thing, so this thing down so that my shoulders and my arms aren't taking the impact when this thing hits when the driver hits the top of the T-post. I don't want to feel that through my body, so I lift it and then I throw it. Okay, and if it's real high in the air, I just lift it a little and drop it till it gets going, and then I throw it. Oh, almost forgot. We want to tie that post to that T-post. Okay, that should be out of the way enough. Okay, let's start digging. The ground was a little too hard for me to dig. The ground was a little too hard for me to dig with my stabilizers up and being in the row. So I backed out of the row a little bit so I can get my stabilizers down without messing anything else up. And we're gonna give this another go. Okay, y'all. So this is one of those moments where, you know, your soul is tried a little bit. Let's just put it that way. Okay, I'm going to show you guys what's going on here. I started digging on that hole. My tractor is a little underpowered with the backhoe to get the concrete out of the old hole. So that creates a challenge, right? There's nothing, all the wood down there is like, it's gone. So I've got to figure out how to get that out. And if I can't get that out, which I'm not sure that I can, I've got to make a tough decision. Okay, and I'm going to walk you through that right now. All right, here's the tough decision I've got to make. Right here, I have an electrical line. It's running underground. It's running right over there to that box right there. Okay, and like our little makeshift duck barrier here, for whatever reason, they won't go over that, but they'll climb into a bucket of water that's a lot taller than that. Anyway, all right, so it's running underground right here. So I got to dodge that, and I don't know if it's here or if it's moved over here some. So I got to stay away from that. The other thing, I've got these earth anchors that I pulled out of the ground, and some people say that they don't work too well in this ground out here. For my application, they've worked fine, and I pulled some out of the ground and they didn't have any rust or anything on them. They were doing just fine. So, and that was a year or two ago, and they had already been in for 8. So I think they're gonna be okay. So I kind of want to leave them alone. This post I could take out, but then I don't really have a good angle to my earth anchor for the new post. Right here, we've got irrigation, and I don't want to hit that because then I've got to spend the day fixing it instead of doing what I'm supposed to be doing, which is this. The other thing I could do is take out this vine, but if I establish that precedent, then I'm taking out 14 vines on each side. That's 28 vines, and each vine can produce up to 10 pounds, 5 to 10 pounds. So I'm looking at anywhere from 140 to 280 pounds of lost production, which is that's about a keg worth of juice or wine. So there really aren't any good decisions to make here. The best decision is to get that out of the ground. So I might give it another go, but my stabilizers are risking my earth anchors. And you can see right here how it bent that wire a little bit. And I don't want to break this. This is tough stuff, and I really want to keep it around if I can. So the other thing I could do is remove this post, which might end up happening anyway, but removing this post doesn't necessarily mean I can put one right there, because I'm still digging too close to everything. I could go rent an earth auger. I might see if I can hand dig down and see if I can wobble or wiggle that concrete out of there, because I would really still like my post to be right there without moving this. So I'm probably going to chisel away on this a little bit longer and just see what comes of it. But nonetheless, not really a whole lot of good options. And that's kind of the thing you run into when you're in a smaller area, like a backyard vineyard, or even like settings like in Europe, where they've got high density plantings because families had heirs, and there were maybe many of them, and so the parcel of land got split amongst 10 of them, and then another 10 of them, and then another 10 of them, and so you've got these small, like 200 to 300 vine plantings, and on a small tiny footprint in the middle of an urban area. And so that's kind of what we're dealing with here. So we've got to figure it out. That is definitely a no. So I don't want to back this up any further. I don't want to back the earth anchor up, because I would have to drive it, and it would be too close to my electrical, and I'm not okay with that. It's not deep enough. These posts are going to sit about as deep as that electrical, so I don't want to move this way. Okay, if anything, I want to only think about what's over there. All right, and I don't really want to mess with my irrigation, and I don't want to move a vine, so I'm going to chisel on that. I think the next best thing to do is try to get this up. If I can't get that up, or at least expose the block enough so I can grab it with a chain and try to pull it out, the vines are going to have to go, and we'll just have to deal with that loss. Not really what I want to do. I know that's not really what you guys wanted to hear, but let's just say if we did put it there, there would still be an opportunity over time to eventually reintroduce that vine in here somewhere. But right now, this is what we're looking at, and it's looking like that vine might be in the way of what we're trying to do. So we'll see. All right. Okay, I dug around there some. The concrete is right here. So I'm going to stick those backhoe teeth in there and see if I can wiggle it a little bit. I might take my San Angelo bar over there and break this up some. In the words of Ric Flair, woo! We got that thing out of there. It took some doing, but we did it, and that was the best case option. So, thank goodness, thank the Lord. That was trying. I wasn't sure we were going to get that out, but we got that out, and the hole is about halfway to where we want it to be. So I'm going to keep digging. It should be okay. This vine gets to live another day, and we don't have to lose our 140 to 280 pounds of production. We'll take that. Minutes of digging. We're getting pretty close to where I want to be. I'll let you guys see the hole. It's also a good opportunity to see where roots are concentrated, so let me show you that too. Okay guys, so here's the hole. My arm is about 2.5, 3 feet long, so, and it can not quite touch the bottom, so we're probably at about 3 feet here. I might go a little bit more, but I'm gonna take a measurement and see how deep we actually are. But we're over 2.5 feet, getting close to 3, and so that'll be pretty good. I got 10-foot posts. I want about 1/3 of it in the ground, so that's about 3 feet, a little more than 3 feet. So that's what we're gonna do. Okay, next thing. You see this root system over here? Right here? That's coming from that vine right there, most likely. And it's not too deep. And most of the roots aren't very deep. There is one down here about at a foot, you know. You look over here, this is that big vine right to my left, and if you notice, most of the roots are within about 6 to 12 inches. You know, there are very few roots. There's one real deep, but most of the roots are concentrated within the first foot and a half of soil. So this is about a foot and a half down. I don't see any, you know, there are a few little things going on down here, probably about 2 feet, but grapevines don't really forage all that deeply. It's right here near the surface, and so if this, you know, they like dry soil, but if it gets too dry for them, they need that irrigation. Okay, it's not like they're rooted into the Ogallala or anything like that. Olagala, you know, they're all up here near the surface, so they're not like some of our big trees and other things we got growing. Okay guys, so as expected, we're about 2.5 feet. We're getting pretty close to 3. If I remove some of that debris, some of those dirt clods down there, we will be at 3. So I'm going to dig just a little bit more, and then we're going to call it good. We're going to call that good. All right, we're all set up. We're ready to make some concrete out of the bucket. I've got my water, I've got my concrete, I've got my post. I've got to get one more tool, and we'll be ready to go. I've got a little angle here, and what we're going to do is we're going to use this thing, and it's going to help me get about a 15-degree lean in that post. So not straight up and down, but just a slight lean. If you can see that on my right angle there, and it's about a 15-degree lean. Okay, right over here by my pinky is the indicator. So we got about 15-degree lean, and the way I'm going to do that is once I get the post in, I'm going to take a board that's relatively flat, put it across the ground, and I'm gonna go ahead and put this up next to the post and just lean it back a hair. If I need to lock it in, I'm going to take a T-post, drive it in next to that grapevine. I want to be careful though, because I've got other stuff right there, but I'll drive it in next to that grapevine over there. And then we'll use the baling wire again to tie up that post, because I don't want it dropping back too far. Okay, next thing I got to do, I'm going to lift this bucket up, and I'm going to get it ready, probably at waist height for my concrete. I'm going to use water and a shovel, mix that up. I'm going to get a little bit closer to my hole when I do this, and then my pipe is going to go, you know, right in there. All right, so that's the plan right now. All right, we're going to go 2 bags in the hole, then the post, then the other 3 to 4 bags. 250 to 300 pounds in here. These are 50-pound bags, okay? that's a pretty close approximation of what we need. So we're gonna keep mixing some concrete and then keep putting it in the hole. We got 4 more bags we need to get in there. Okay, now there's just kind of, I put this board here to kind of help me tell if my post is in the correct place. I actually like that lean, but we're going to check and see what it is right now. All right, so right down here where that board is, I'm going to measure my angle with the post. Okay, so there's an angle down there and I want to measure it. Make sure we're not more than a 20-degree lean. I only want like 10 to 15. So we're gonna check it. And if we need to make an adjustment, we're gonna move this post before that concrete sets up. So again, I've got my angle. I've got it double checked with my triangle, and we're right at about a 15-degree lean. So I'm gonna check that. I'm gonna check that from the other side. All right, so I'm pretty much there. They make some other tools for this. I've got a little floating dial that could tell me a little bit better. I don't have it with me today. You could always hang a string, you know, and measure your angles. There are multiple ways to do this. From what I can tell and what I'm looking at, that's about what I want. So I think that'll be just fine. But now I want to make sure that I don't have, because it's all going to move a little bit anyway. Once I put this under tension, it's going to come forward a little bit. When the wind starts shaking it, it's going to blow all over. And as you can tell from the other posts, they kind of find their final home eventually. But anyway, so this is what we've got. It looks good to me. I'm going to leave it like that. And then I'm going to check just to see if I'm leaning one way or the other. All right, guys, so here's what I was looking at. So when I'm looking at my bubbles, I want to make sure I'm in between the lines right there. Now you can go buy a fancy tool that you can move around here that'll show you the angles. And if you want to do that, they're worth the investment. I have one of those. I'm just finding it right now. I don't know where it went. I think it might have actually gotten broke. So I'm not even sure I have it. So here, if you can tell, we've got a half bubble. It's a little hard, but we got a half bubble right there. And then over here, we go back to that other side just to double check ourselves. If you can see, we're still between the lines. So that's what we want. Now I'm going to back up. And I'm going to show you what else I was looking at. So when I'm looking at this, I want to make sure that visually it looks like it's straight up and down and in alignment with that bottom post. Okay, even though that bottom post is coming out, it's a good indicator. I don't want it listing one way or another, and so my tool is saying it's not listing, and so is my eye. Now the next thing I want to do is I'm going to come here to the side, and you can tell all of these posts that were in had a tilt. They all had a lean to them. Okay, but now they're more vertical than anything. Some of them still have a little bit of a lean. Some of them still have a little bit of a lean, like this guy here. But they all had that kind of lean when they started out. So I'm hoping these big metal posts keep that lean a little bit better and keep that angle to the ground a little bit more true when I put tension on them. Okay, so that's what I want it to look like. That's it. Now I'm going to let this set up. I'm going to check it every 15 to 30 minutes, make sure nothing's going on down there. And when I'm done checking it, I'm going to backfill with some dirt, make sure that the top is, and that's kind of how you want it too. You don't want your concrete coming all the way up. All right, don't ask me how I know. All right, you don't want your concrete coming all the way up. You want it down in the ground a little bit, and then you want the dirt to cover the top of it. Okay? All right, and then that keeps it from pulling out of the ground. But this is a good lean. You can kind of see the angle right there. Okay? Not too strong of a lean. And also not leaning side to side. So we got that post straight in alignment with the row, and we've got a slight lean away from the vines. Okay? That's what we want right there. Woo! I'm super happy about this, guys. Hopefully I'm not maintaining any more wood posts for too much longer. All right, let's clean up a little bit. Alright guys, I've got another post I need to set at the other end of the vineyard. I'll get that one in. I'll show you the finished product. I'm not going to walk you through all the steps. You already saw it. This was the most involved post I had. The other post is going to be a little bit easier, just because it's pretty much already out of the ground. So I'm going to go do that one. I'm going to check on this one occasionally, see how it's doing, make sure I'm not losing my angles, and then we're going to call it a day. All right. Thank you guys for joining us. I'll send you updates. I didn't cuss this video that you guys saw. But I did think about it. I was good. Okay? It wasn't easy. You guys that work with concrete all the time have to know what I'm talking about. Okay? All right. Again, I appreciate you guys dropping by Eden's Vine. Thank you guys so much for viewing our content and taking a look at this. I know it might not be the thing that you're doing, but it is important to know that maintenance like this takes time. It sometimes takes resources, depending on where you can get your materials, and it takes patient people around you. If you notice, my wife and kid aren't here right now. So you got to have people that are willing to let you go do this stuff. So I'm very thankful to everybody who supports me. That includes you guys. And if you like this content, please click subscribe. Please like what we're doing out here. We love doing this, and we want to keep doing this, even in an age of AI. And that stuff's powerful. I use it sometimes. But I really want to keep doing this stuff. This is so much fun. All right. You guys have a nice day. All right, let's take a look at these posts and see what we got going on. So this is day 2. Concrete has set up pretty nice. We're not going to put this under tension for a few more days, so I'm going to leave everything like it is. I am using some baling wire to brace up, the post to some existing, mostly rigid structure for now. But the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to move that dirt back into that hole, because the concrete has cured up enough that I'm not worried about putting dirt on top of it. But anyway, that's how it looks. It's got a little bit of lean. It's in alignment with my row, so I'm pretty happy with that. All right, there we go. That's what that one looks like. Looks pretty good. I've got it mounded up a little bit so that when it rains, that's gonna settle out. Got it between 10 and 15 degree lean. It worked. Woo!